Welcome back to Horse Racing World Channel. Jay Friedlander here, along with my longtime colleague from Inside Racing Radio Show, Mr. Steve Pollack. Good evening, Steve.
Good evening, Jay. How you doing?
Doing great. So you are coming off a triumphant Kentucky Derby weekend. Your pick, Sovereignty, overcame the odds-on favorite Journalism and mowed him down late and took that. Steve, Journalism, certainly had all the credentials. He was picked by a consensus of a majority of the handicappers out there, including our former colleague from Inside Racing, Bruno DiGiulio. He had won 4 out of 5 races. He'd won a grade 1 where Sovereignty had only won a grade 2. He'd won at a mile and an eighth where Sovereignty had only run at a mile and 16th and fell short at a mile and an eighth. And yet you picked Sovereignty over Journalism. Tell me why.
Well, the previous race, Jay, to me was not a race that he had to win in the Florida Derby. And I thought he was finishing well. I thought the horse that you liked in the race, Tapan Street, who was a scratch, was a strong contender. And I thought that was a good race. I thought the two best races were the Santa Anita Derby and the Florida Derby. And it certainly proved that for that to be the case with 2 horses on the board from the Santa Anita Derby. So I was right about that. And then I thought the pace was so hot. I liked the connections, but I really liked the way the pace was. And I thought actually being 18th, 17th, I wasn't sure exactly where he would be, but I thought being way at the back of the pack in a race where I thought they were going to absolutely fly up front, where there would be 3 or 4 or 5 horses really contesting that pace, I thought being behind would be a good spot to be and be more in the clear. And that's exactly what happened. He did get a very, very good trip, maybe even a little better than Journalism, but I thought he was best and ran his race.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that hot pace, were you surprised? I don't think there's any surprise that Citizen Bull was going to go right to the front. I mean, Bob Baffert pretty much said that's the only thing we can do, breaking from the rail. Were you surprised to see both Citizen Bull and Neo Equus following him, just bolting out from that rail into about the 3rd and 4th positions?
Didn't know what else they could do. I mean, it really was just a terrible draw for those 2 horses. And I really didn't know what else they can do. But maybe some of the other horses didn't do what they were going to do because there was so much speed on the inside. Some of the other speed horses maybe took hold and changed their strategy, still got a blazingly fast pace. I don't know what those horses could have done. At that distance, it's almost impossible. To me, that's what made those horses pretty easy throwouts. So, no, it wasn't a surprise to see the pace like that. And I really did think Citizen Bull at the end, maybe even after we did our podcast or maybe right the day of, he had an extremely fast work and I knew he was just going to gun from the rail and that was their only hope. So no, it did not surprise me. And, anything better than where he finished would have surprised me, but he was a toss in the race, I thought.
Yeah, and you were absolutely right about that. I mean, the speed all got cooked, and none of them finished well, with except for one, which we'll talk about. But let's talk about maybe the biggest disappointment of the pace setters, East Avenue. East Avenue really looked like he was back in the form when he had won the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland, led most of the way in the Bluegrass, and just outgamed several horses in the stretch and finally got nailed by Burnham Square. But really game performance, it looked to me like he was back on top of his game. They did not try to go with the pace, and I don't know if that was because he just doesn't have the pure speed that Citizen Bull and Neo Equus do, or if they just thought, well, if we go with those 2, it's suicide, so we're going to sit off and we're going to try to pass him. I don't know what happened, but he didn't pass him.
Once you get to that level, it's pretty darn hard to change your style and win that race. And I think he's a speed horse. I think they made a mistake by not going, and maybe they weren't going to finish any better than where they did. I think that's a nice horse. I really do. I like the way he looks. Gosh, such a well put together horse. And Jay, I think that's a horse that we need to keep our eyes on for the future. This horse might do something down the road. He certainly looks the part. I think a lot of people that played him in the Derby are now going to be like, okay, I am done with this horse. Played him in the Breeders' Cup. He didn't break, but he has shown some really, really good flashes. And I actually think that he can get better. Remember, he didn't switch leads late in that Bluegrass. He didn't switch leads very well. There's room for improvement there. That's a horse that I want to keep my eyes on down the road because I think you picked a good one. And I also thought your closer is another one that we're going to talk about. I think you picked a couple good ones that didn't necessarily have the right trips.
Yeah, absolutely. But one that certainly got the right trip was Owen Almighty. Owen Almighty was sitting third almost all the way in that, right in that catbird seat, right off those dueling leaders, Citizen Bull and Neo Equus. And he enveloped them and passed them at the top of the stretch. He didn't hold that lead very long, but he had it for a minute and certainly looked like he was the king of the speed that day. What did you think of Owen Almighty's performance?
Well, I mean, you can call that the catbird seat, but when they're going that fast, Jay, as you know, I mean, that was a pretty darn good effort from that horse. I was pretty surprised. He showed me something, and that's another horse I'm going to keep my eye on. Those are two horses right there. I think those two horses you can put in your stable mail and look for a race down the road where they could maybe get a good pace scenario for them at maybe a little lesser level. Maybe not. Maybe they'll even get better as it comes on. But those are two horses that I really want to keep my eye on down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Burnham Square, a horse we both like. We both had him in our top three in the Derby previews off that nice bluegrass win, just flying from the clouds to nail East Avenue late and catch him by a nose. And this time around, they decided to push him up a little closer to the pace. I think they decided in that huge field that that wasn't a winning strategy. Well, it didn't turn out to be a winning strategy doing that either.
Yeah, I didn't like the strategy. You know, and the rider won the Kentucky Derby last year. Those are good connections. I didn't like the change in strategy because I thought that horse was more of a one-run closer. He had runs best race as a one-run closer, and I don't know why they didn't see what I saw and that there was so much speed that it wasn't worth going to the lead. So that was disappointing that Burnham Square was up that close. Yes, he had trouble on the backside. Yes, he did make a run after that trouble, but he didn't really look like he was finishing well. And I think even with a clean trip, he was going to run no better than fourth or fifth. So a little bit of a disappointing effort from him, but a very disappointing effort strategically for the guy that won the race last year and a trainer that I think somewhere down the road could win a Kentucky Derby. But so Burnham Square, probably the disappointment of the race for you and I.
Yeah, well, one of the two disappointments, and the other one, of course, was Luxor Cafe. Luxor Cafe had terrific form coming out of Japan, a 5 length win there, a big win in the slop. So it looked like conditions were tailor made for Luxor Cafe to put in a big effort, and yet he just ran up the track. What do you think happened?
Well, it certainly wasn't looks, Jay, because when he came on the track, there were two things that happened to me for me in the post parade. I thought Luxor Cafe looked like a horse that was at a different level. He looked so good, completely dappled and just toned and just looked absolutely gorgeous. His coat was just shining. And then Baeza, I thought looked terrible. He washed out completely, and neither one of those two horses ran to their looks. I mean, Baeza just looked like a horse that wasn't happy out there. I had already put my ticket in. I had put a superfecta in, and I had both of those horses were key horses for me. And I didn't really want to change it because I'll tell you the supers that I put in were a lot of numbers, and taking one horse out, putting one horse in is not an easy thing to do when they've already come on the track like that. And I did not change it, and I'm glad I didn't because Baeza did not run to his looks. But Luxor Cafe, what a disappointment! I just was very surprised. It does seem to be a little bit of an issue with these Japanese horses, race after race. Jay, especially the Breeders' Cup Sprint last year, really caught my eye. These Japanese horses don't seem to break as well as they should. Time after time, it keeps happening. Dermasoda Gake comes to mind when he broke in the Kentucky Derby. A couple of these horses just not breaking well, and it seems to be a little bit of an issue for these Japanese horses. Luxor Cafe did not only not break very well, he just didn't fire. He didn't run a step. I didn't give him much of an excuse. Bad break and all, he just didn't fire.
Yeah. And then like probably about half the field, Luxor Cafe and several of the others just didn't make any impact. They weren't in the pace. They weren't really closing any ground. They were just kind of running around the track. But then you had four closers that really did make an impact late. And the one that got first run was the big favorite Journalism. The other speed horses, Owen Almighty, had just cracked the other two and had just passed Neo Equus running around the turn. And then Journalism was right there. He was sitting off that pace, and Reese Bully at that point got him in gear, and Journalism swept around and past Owen Almighty. What did you think of the ride that Reese Bully gave Journalism?
I liked it. Teeny bit of trouble early. I heard some people make some excuses that he could have won without any trouble early. And I know the winner did have a perfect trip, but he had a little bit of trouble And then from there on, it was good. He got first run, which again, I made the point in a race with that much pace maybe isn't as important, that the best horse is going to go by when they go that fast at the end. But I thought the trip was good. I thought he ran a good race and finished second, might have been third best because Baeza was very, very wide throughout. And but I thought the trip for journalism was pretty darn good.
Yeah, absolutely. I did think that I thought it was a wise decision. I thought the strategy was sound in that journalism was taken off the pace because if he had tried, I don't agree with the barn that he should have been, pressing the pace sooner because I just don't think he would have any punch left. I think it would have been a Burnham Square situation where they probably wouldn't have finished as far back as Burnham Square, but still, I don't think he could have contested for the win as he did. But at the same time, I just thought you had a horse that was a superior closer in Sovereignty, the best closer in the race, obviously. And I just think it was incumbent upon Rispoli, who was really, this was the biggest race of his life. If he had put him in the race just a little sooner, I mean, I think the style was right, but if he had moved a couple of seconds sooner and gotten a little bit clearer, it might have been a closer call.
Possibly, I possibly. It's not impossible. The perfect trip, maybe it would have been a little closer. Again, I think he was lucky to hold second. I mean, another jump or two, and Baeza was going to get him, and Baeza had gone wide. So both ran. I mean, really, the top three horses I thought ran very good races.
Yeah. And then, of course, Baeza really flew late, had a super wide trip because unfortunately, render judgment, they decided to run that horse. So unfortunately, Baeza couldn't get into the main draw when they drew. And if he was going to draw into the race, it was going to be from the far outside. Kind of a bad rule, in my opinion. Maybe they should look at that, but I'm not sure quite how you change it. But despite, going, wide to the Kentucky Turnpike, Baeza still flew late. And just like in the Santa Anita Derby, almost got to journalism. I mean, those two are this close. I mean,
They really are.
yeah,
They are.
I think those two could wind up being the Fierceness and Sierra Leone this year. And, of course, Sovereignty is certainly the one to be reckoned with. But those two, Baeza, because he's so lightly raced, probably has the most upside of the three and maybe the most room to develop.
Well, we know he has the pedigree, right? I mean, that pedigree is outstanding and it's proven in the Triple Crown series. Maybe if he had a little bit more seasoning, but Jay, maybe if he won a little bit more money, then he wouldn't have had to have had that 20 hole, right? Because he wouldn't have been on that also eligible list and he would have been in the main field and he could have gotten a better draw. So, I mean, I don't know if I can blame. I think the people in Kentucky are probably doing it right. He just had to have more points and they waited to run Baeza a little bit later. Gave him a little bit more time. Well, you give a horse a little bit more time. Maybe you don't get into the main field. He got in, but he got in last. I don't know. I don't know if you can give that horse a break. I know they want to do the draw. They want to do it earlier. I like that. I don't know. I just think Baeza, I mean, it turned out he really ran a heck of a race. I think if he draws in the middle of the field, I think he clearly runs second. And maybe he's right there on the wire with Sovereignty. I mean, he definitely Pratt did everything he could. But in typical fashion, and he's a tactical horse too. There was just too many horses for him to get over, and Sovereignty and Journalism were both able to save more ground than him. And I think if you're a Thoroughgraph or a Ragusan guy, you're going to look at that afterward, and you're going to see that number for Baeza. It's pretty darn good.
Yeah, no question about it. But and then the final horse, Final Gambit. This was a turf and synthetic horse through all of his career, making his dirt debut in the Derby. I mean, that's never an easy thing to do. And yet he closed a lot of ground while he was never a threat for the win. He closed like he's, maybe a little more distance can help. Obviously he's one of the horses that's waiting for the Belmont. And do you think that mile and a half distance, it's not a mile and a half this year, though, it's still a mile and a quarter. But do you think the Belmont race over the Saratoga course, do you think Final Gambit can improve enough to get the money there? Or do you think he just doesn't quite have enough speed and he's really got more of a turf gait to him that he's maybe a little outclassed by the three that finished ahead of him?
That's what I think, Jay. I think he finished fourth because he's a nice horse, but I think he's probably a little bit more turfy. And I mean, he had every chance. Ran a very, very nice fourth. I think those other horses are better. And when he gets to another race, if he gets in that Belmont, if he does try to run in that race, I don't think he's going to get the pace. I mean, that's the race that he's going to get that pace. Think ultimately that'll be a horse to really keep your eyes on. Might be a turf horse down the road.
Very possibly, or a synthetic horse, but there's just not as
Yeah.
many. I mean, he might be best on synthetics, but there's just not that many big synthetic races anymore. Ever since Keeneland did away with the synthetic horse, it's just the big money's either going to be on the turf or it's going to be on the dirt. You see, we're talking about the numbers. I had mentioned to you that journalism really excelled in both the buyer figures and the Brisfigs. But I know you're a fan of the Ragozin sheets, and I think you were telling me about Sovereignty's Ragozin numbers.
Well, they were very good. I mean, they were very good coming in. Both those horses ran good races. I think that I have not seen what the number was coming out of there, but I think it'll be a pretty similar number that they ran. And again, I think the horse that might get the best number or surprisingly might be a little bit better than the other two would be Baeza because of the amount of ground that he lost around that. So, for those of you that are Thoroughgraph and Ragozin sheet readers, I would look at that number down the road. They may give him a little bit better number. I think he ran a little bit better race than those top two number wise. But again, a lot of it is anticipating the trip that they're going to get, and I put Baeza lower in my thought process mainly because of that draw. I thought that was just a really, really tough place to be, and I think that's part of handicapping.
Yeah, no question. So, Steve, you picked the winner of the Kentucky Derby, and then, like any racing fan, because even though we're professional handicappers and we're broadcasters, we're fans at heart. We have our rooting interest, we have dogs in the hunt. And so I have to think you were looking forward to seeing Sovereignty defend that Kentucky Derby ground in the next leg and go for the Triple Crown. How disappointed were you when Bill Mott decided to pass the race?
Yeah, I mean, really, they've made this Preakness race not as big as it should be. I think the Derby winner should automatically be running in this race. I mean, it's tradition. This is what got me into the game, watching Affirmed and Alidar come down the stretch. I mean, that's almost 50 years ago now, but I remember waiting for Wide World of Sports to come on when I was a kid. Those two horses were running against each other, and I thought it was the most incredible thing, and that they came back 2 weeks later and they came back 3 weeks later, and it was just an incredible matchup and really got me excited about it. And I think it's very disappointing that here we are, we're seeing the Derby winner not come back in this race, and it's become a regular thing.
Yeah, well, recently you've had five horses, and I know this because I pulled them up. But those five horses, the most recent one was Rich Strike, who didn't go, and then you also had Gato del Sol, who decided to wait for the Belmont, thought it was better suited to him. And you had Country House, who was put up by disqualification. Country House was sick. He would have gone if he could have. And then, of course, you had Spendebuck, who ran in the Jersey Derby,
Right.
because back then they had $1 million bonus. And I thought at that time that Spendebuck was certainly one that could have won the Derby and probably contended for the Triple Crown. Unlike the other three, Rich Strike was not going to contend for the Triple Crown. But really, I've got to think that I think it was a big factor. If you probably remember this, Steve, because you and I are about the same age, it was 1969 when Naira made the move. They moved the Belmont Stakes back from 2 weeks to 3 weeks after the Preakness, and then it's been that way ever since. So for the last 55 years, you've basically had that going that way with a 2 week gap to the Preakness and a 3 week gap to the Belmont. But when you consider these races have been around like over a century. I mean, the first running of the Belmont was 1867, 2 years after the Civil War, and then you had a filly actually won that. That was a filly named Ruthless. I know this because I looked it up today. Uh, so I don't think 55 years is really the hill to die for. I just think if Naira could move the Belmont, I think it's high. I think Bill Mott was sending a message. Whether we agree with what he did or not, there's no question he's one of the best horsemen out there, and he's one of the most caring horsemen out there. You don't see drug violations with Bill Mott. This is a guy that really cares for his stock, and I think he's basically sending a message. It's not good to run these horses back so fast. I mean, that's 2 weeks. And, look at the big race, the La Troyenne, a couple of weeks ago, where Torpedo Anna came back on 3 weeks rest. And she was just cooked. Yeah, I know she had a little trouble, but, everyone's saying they examined Torpedo Anna and there was nothing wrong with her. And, it was probably just too soon. So 2 weeks, this stage, the way these horses are, how fragile they are, how short their careers they are, it's crazy to have a 2 week distance. This is not 1867 anymore. I think it's time that the Preakness moved back a week, just like the Belmont did, and then Naira can do what it wants. I don't care if they don't like it. They moved. I mean, the Preakness has every right to move too.
Boy, you know what? I like tradition. I think the Triple Crown is a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to win, and it's hard. I mean, not only does not only do these horses have to win a race 2 weeks later, but at a completely different racetrack. Last 3 years, Seize the Gray, National Treasure, Early Voting, all speed horses have won the Derby. Or no, won the Preakness. It's a completely different race, Jay. I think it's hard. It's really hard. And I think the favorite, the Derby winner, would have been a horse that I would have played against because he's just not a real tactical horse. We were talking about tactical speed, and I don't think tactical speed meant anything in the Derby. And I turned out to be right. I think it means a lot in this race. It's really difficult. So maybe that's part of the reason. And then 2 weeks, like you said, I don't know. I still think it's a tough thing to do. It takes an incredible horse, and I like to see it, but again, it's a really tough call. I totally see your side of it, but from someone who loves this Triple Crown and loves to watch all three of these races, I'm extremely disappointed that we're just not getting them all coming back.
Yeah, no question about it. It's sad because Sovereign, this isn't Rich Strike we're talking about. Sovereignty's a quality horse. He's an improving horse. He's getting better with every race. And, certainly he would be a legitimate Triple Crown contender. Yeah, he would have to deal with journalism again. That would be another tough fight. And Bill Mott made a statement that I don't think it was only the 2 weeks distance, but the fact that the Preakness is run at Pimlico. It's always been the most speed favoring probably of the three Kentucky Derby tracks, and tactically the surface of the Preakness doesn't suit Sovereignty as well as it suits journalism. It's more made for journalism.
Absolutely. Look, last year, Seize the Gray didn't run in the Derby. National Treasure the year before, he ran in the Santa Anita Derby, then came back in the Preakness and won. And Early Voting was second, I believe, in the Wood for Chad Brown 3 years ago. I know the last 3 years this race has been won by speed horses that didn't run in the Derby. You're going to have to contend with those again this year, and come back and fire in 2 weeks on a completely different racetrack. So yeah, I mean, there's obstacles to overcome, but it's still the charm of the Derby and then the Preakness and the Belmont. It's a great thing. I mean, if these guys wanted to say, okay, we'll skip that, we'll run in the Belmont, and then we'll still have a fresh horse for the Travers and the Breeders' Cup Classic. Hey, that's great too. But I'm a traditionalist. I'd really like to see all these horses run in the Triple Crown.
As would I. I think all the top contenders, unless you have an excuse like when Country House was just sick and couldn't make the race, I'd love to see.
Wholeheartedly.
I would love to see the top five run. I think it's kind of like the sport has lost a lot of viewers. I think it's a sport that's skewed to like an older crowd, and I think something like this, when you've got a championship, it's not like the Dodgers say we'll pass the division series and we'll just play in the World Series. It doesn't work that way. So I just think when you've got a real chance and you've got a sport that frankly has lost a few fans along the way, I just think unless there's a soundness issue, I think the overriding concern should be what's best for the sport. Unless you've got a horse that just can't deal with it. But unfortunately, this is what we have, and no Triple Crown this year. But we do have Triple Crown races. We have the Preakness, and why don't we talk about all the horses just like we did the Kentucky Derby, and then make our three picks at the end? I personally, just in general, before we start, I've looked at the entries. I think there are 4 horses personally that can win, but I'll only give 3 at the end. What do you think? How many do you think have a real shot?
I think that's about the right number. Yeah, I mean, I I mean, goal oriented is not going to be in my top three. That's the one horse, and I didn't like the draw for that horse. I don't know what they're going to do, and he sort of lacks experience. I think four or five horses can win this race.
Yeah, I think as well. And so yeah, we'll start with we'll go down from the rail like we did before. And yeah, that first horse, of course, is goal oriented. And goal oriented is certainly a horse that has shown early speed. As a sprinter, he was a closer. He closed that one race from off the pace. But when he went around two turns for the first time, Flavian put him right on the lead. And he never looked back. He made every pole a winning one, as they say. But despite that, normally when you see that, what you find is when you have an early pace horse like that, the early pace horse, generally the closing number, the closing fraction isn't as fast. But in this case, it's the opposite. Excuse me. Goal oriented had the third best early pace number on the Brisk figures, which means he's possibly not going to make the lead this time. These are better horses, and he was only facing optional claimers last time. But despite the fact that he was leading all the way, he had the best closing figure according to Brisk. He had the only triple-digit late pace figure of 100. So I think you could see from goal oriented a very similar trip to Owen Almighty, where he's attending the pace, but he's not setting it. I think there are horses that are going to go ahead of him, and I don't think Flavian's going to try to push it and use up all his speed. So I do make goal oriented one of my contenders, but I don't know that he is the contender. We'll see if he makes my top three when we're done with this.
When he started, Jay, his first race, you wouldn't have given a bag of beans for him down the backside. He looked like he just wasn't even trying, literally dropping out of it. And then he just ran a really professional race the last 3 furlongs. The distance of that race was 6 furlongs, and then he was a quarter mile in front on the gallop out. He just was so full of run on the gallop out. I really liked this horse last time, and I thought he ran a really good race. What I don't like for him is there's some greenness still in this horse, and he draws the rail. There's a very, very fast horse in here toward the outside, and Clever again. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't like it if they try to track in behind from that inside. That's where you get the shuffle. So I don't think trip-wise, and I think he's just, he's got the talent. He definitely has the talent. A win would not surprise me. I'm going to try to beat him in this race. It is Baffert. You got a terrific rider. Tendency for Pratt is to rate, and I think he'll try to do that. I'm not sure that that's going to give this horse the best trip. I'm going to try to beat goal oriented, but he's certainly a horse to keep an eye on. He's very talented.
Yeah. And so certainly in the number 2 hole, you have the elephant in the room. Journalism obviously has every credential you would want, including just missing beating your horse Sovereignty in the Derby. Steve, what do you think of journalism's chances today? Or not today, but Saturday?
I think he's got a great chance to win right back. Just nothing wrong with any of his efforts. A teeny bit shorter distance isn't going to hurt him. He's tactical, and that's going to help him in this race. Now we're at a race where I'd rather have first run than on a deep closer. Like if you're going to try to close me on Sandman, which I don't think you are, I would way rather have first run in this kind of a race than I would want to be that deep closer, because I see some speed in this race, but not near as much. And I know speed sticks better on this track. Journalism is going to be very tough to beat in here. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, no question about that. So next we move on to the third horse. And unfortunately, they have not quite updated the performances yet, so I'm going back and forth, which is a little frustrating. The third horse, American Promise. Now, we were talking about a horse that might make the lead ahead of Goal Oriented, and I think American Promise may fit that category completely. This is absolutely a speed horse. He was on the pace very briefly for the first call in the Derby, where he was third 2 lengths off, and then he just fell off a cliff from that first call. By the second call, he gone from third to 13th place, and then by the top of the stretch, he was 15th, and he was 13 lengths out. He finally finished 38. I don't think they were persisting with him late, as they might say. American Promise definitely figures to be probably the pace factor. I think they're going to look at the configuration of this race with goal orienting the outside, and I've got to think they're going to send this guy. I think he's not going to finish quite as badly, because how much worse can you do than 38 lengths back? And yet
So
at
he's
the
going to
same,
finish better. Your prediction is he's going to finish better. We're going out on a limb. He's going to finish better than he did in the Derby,
yeah, exactly. But
but not
yeah,
contend.
I'm not seeing this horse as a contender for the win. What about you?
I don't, I don't want to criticize Dwayne Lucas. What an incredible career. I watched it. I mean, I remember going down to Caliente for the second Breeders' Cup, thinking, how many races is this guy going to dominate today? How good a trainer he was, and how dominant he was. I just this horse is just completely uh, in the wrong situation for me. I can't believe he got bet in the Derby. I didn't like him at all then. Why would I like him anymore now? He doesn't look like the speed of the speed here to me. I think there is a horse that's going to be faster than him in here. Maybe they'll try to change strategy. I didn't love the Colonial race. I think he's a toss.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think if he finishes in the super high five, that would be progress. Moving on from American Promise, who probably doesn't show a lot of promise this coming Saturday, we have the Invader, Heart of Honor. Have you looked at Heart of Honor, Steve?
I have this guy was on the wrong lead in the stretch against Admire Daytona, who came back in the Derby and didn't run any good. I watched a couple of his other races. He's at least gone a little bit of a further distance than some of the shippers that come over here, and he's been competitive in those two races. Neither one of them were very impressive. I'm going to go with the visual aspect on this one. He was in between horses on a three-way scrum, and he kept running. But I'm not sure if he ever got to the right lead, and I was pretty unimpressed. Here we go again with seeing these horses coming from overseas. I'm going to pass on this guy. Just didn't like his races on tape.
Yeah, I agree. And if Admire Daytona is the measure, and this guy was a nose behind Admire Daytona, who finished well up the track in the Kentucky Derby. I think he's still running. They might make him swim back to Japan. But but yeah, I just think Heart of Honor is overmatched here. I think if you look at class wise, this guy just missed in a grade 3 and a grade 2 over in Dubai. And realistically, those races are probably like, listed overnight stakes to upper class allowance horses in terms of how classy they are. I mean, you look at even a race like the Saudi Cup, and which has the biggest purse in the world. It's 20 million bucks, and yet at the same time, the horses that run and win in the Saudi Cup, would have a hard time, winning some of the grade 2s over here. So yeah, I think Heart of Honor is going to show that those races weren't all they were cracked up to be. And now we come to the local horse. We come to Pay Billy, because it's Pimlico, and you always have a local horse running. And so a few of them have exceeded their odds. I don't know that Pay Billy is going to be one of them. Pay Billy has been running in some minor stakes there. He's never run in a graded race. Well, at least he's running some stakes races. I mean, goal oriented has never even run in a stakes. But this one won his last two, $100,000, $150,000 stakes at Laurel. Surprisingly, even though he's been hanging around Maryland most of his career, he's never run a Pimlico. So it's kind of an unknown factor to see, but he certainly has tactical speed. He's got a little bit of kick late. And it wouldn't surprise me to see Pay Billy, surprise and say the superfecta at a big price, but I can't imagine this horse winning.
You look like a real grinder on tape. I didn't like what I saw on tape from this guy. Really looked like they were coming home in absolute slow motion, running the mile in 39 and 1 and finishing up in 52 and 3 for a mile and an eighth race. And the race before that, again, this horse was winning by multiple lengths, but I thought they were really all out on this horse. And sometimes you can tell a horse has got a lot more left in the tank. I didn't see that at all from this horse. I think he's a toss.
Yeah, as far as the win end goes, yeah, but I wouldn't be afraid to make this guy like a superfecta key or something like that. You can do a lot of damage with a 10 cent or more than 10 cent superfecta, and it would not surprise me to see this guy, kind of press the pace and just hang on for fourth. It wouldn't shock me, and the money will be worth it. So Steve, the Todd Pletcher horse, River Thames, the one that didn't really impress Bruno so much. What do you think of River Thames?
Well, he was in that Burnham Square East Avenue race, and the reason that I really liked Burnham Square coming out of that race is it was so hard. It was so hard to close at that track during that meet. So I'm giving this guy some credit for having some time. He was second to Sovereignty before that, in a pretty darn impressive effort in the Fountain of Youth when Sovereignty really came on the scene. I give this guy a shot. I think he's going to get a good tracking trip, and I think Pletcher will have him ready. Pletcher's record in this race is not very good. I would not play him to win in this race, but I'm going to use him in the exotics, and he'd be in the mix for me. I don't think he's great, but I think he's good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he was right there with Burnham Square and East Avenue, and they both finished, mid pack, and didn't really have an impact on the finish of the race. But then he finished right behind Sovereignty, who obviously, excelled and won the race and won it decisively. Do you think he's closer to Sovereignty, or do you think he's closer to Burnham Square and East Avenue?
Well, I mean, Burnham Square and East Avenue were two of the troubled horses in the Derby, I thought. I mean, I just thought East Avenue tried to change tactics in a race, and then I thought Burnham Square was too close to the pace. So I thought both of those horses ran better than their running line looks. I mean, if the favorite comes out and doesn't run, why couldn't this horse be a strong contender in here? I just don't see anybody that stands out over him. He's a horse I'm going to use. Don't love this horse, but I think he's one of the ones.
Yeah, as do I. He's in my four contenders that I think have a shot. I do think this one's on the improve. These are young horses. I think he took well to a mile and an eighth, and he's got way more tactical speed than Burnham Square does. He can attend the pace, which is important in a race like this because Burnham Square can't. I don't know if Sovereignty can attend the pace, and unlike the Derby, where I think you were correct that it didn't matter if you had first run. I think in the Preakness, maybe you don't need first run, but you probably need some kind of an early run. I don't think you see as many come from the clouds. Unfortunately, this guy doesn't have to come from the clouds. He's usually sitting right up against that pace. And I think River Thames under Rad Ortiz is certainly a legit contender here.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there.
Yeah. So now we come to Sandman, a talented, erratic horse that has often been a disappointment. He was actually making up some grounds, got off to a bad start in the Derby, and he's never really been a quick starter. I wouldn't say that was so much slower than his regular starts because he usually comes from behind. I just think it was a bigger, tougher field, which is why he came from even farther back. I think unlike the previous race in the Arkansas Derby, where he was weaving around the stretch like a drunken sailor, and yet still managed to get home clear of Publisher, a maiden. In the Kentucky Derby, he was plodding on from behind, making zero impact in the race. And yet, this is a much easier field. I don't like him to win, but what do you think? Do you think he can do anything here?
Well, the reason to play the Kentucky Derby was this horse, because this horse was really bet in the Kentucky Derby. And it turns out that one of the part owners of this horse is a big social media influencer. And that's why this horse's price was so low. I kept looking, going, man, it turns out the right bet in the Kentucky Derby was really betting the horse to win, that won the race to win. Sovereignty to win was the vet because this horse was over bet. And there was the influencer, the big influencer that's part owner of this horse, had literally thousands of people betting $50 and $20 a crack. And obviously, with thousands of them, that came up to be a big number. And that's how this horse was bet. I didn't like his race in the Arkansas Derby. I didn't like any of his races in the races before that. Nobody did well coming from that circuit in the Kentucky Derby. I think those races were all slow. This guy was running, as you said, like a drunken sailor in that Arkansas Derby down the stretch, and he had every chance in the Derby. Got a big call from the announcer, but then he just flattened out and didn't run. Final Gambit went right by him. He was running with him. I don't think Final Gambit would be a contender in here. So for me, this is the horse to go against again, especially if the social media people bet him in here. Maybe there'll be some value in a win bet, but I think this horse is a good go against. I don't like him in the try, Jay.
Yeah, I don't think he's in the top three. He's not in my contenders to win. But a horse that might rate a little better than that is Clever Again. Steve, what do you think?
Gosh, he's quick. He's really quick. I want to see what he does early. Goal oriented, I think can sit. River Thames, I think can sit. American Promise, I don't know. He's fast, and I'm not sure what he's going to do. I like to take a chance in here with Clever Again. I kind of like a little better price than that. He's a horse that when I watched him on tape, I was impressed. I know nothing has come out of Oaklawn, certainly out of the bigger races, but I did like the way this horse ran in those races down there. And I think if he could be the speed of the speed, I think he's got the best chance of upsetting journalism in here today. I'm not going to make a win bet on him, but I am going to use him in my exotics. I think the 8 Clever Again is going to outrun his odds, and I think he'll run well.
Yeah, Clever Again. Gotta love the breeding on this guy. He's out of a Galileo mare, and Galileo, the average winning distance is 10.5 furlongs. You can basically take a clever Galileo horse and ride him from LA to Chicago. And he'll still be going. Take a licking and keep on ticking. Out of American Pharaoh, of course, who's proved to be a fine sire. Not all Triple Crown sires are, but American Pharaoh has had some impressive progeny. This one cost $500,000, despite the fact that he's bred for these really long distances. He's really shown super duper speed. I mean, even at 4.5 furlongs, he was just a head off the pace, and he's never been headed going a mile and a mile and 16. It looks like he's running to his breeding. He's improved every time. He's getting better as the distance go longer. Every speed figure has been an improvement. I think Clever Again's a very, very solid contender here in his first shot at Graded Stakes Company.
I think you're going to know early, right? I mean, if he can clear, I like the post draw for him for sure. Obviously, what's goal oriented going to do? I don't like the draw for him. Is he going to just kind of be in between and trying to take back a little bit? That's what I'm visualizing Pratt doing. So maybe you're really betting on American Promise not running his A race and not even really getting out there. This horse could get a length on that one, and that's kind of what I would be banking on. That's why I'm not saying, man, I really like Clever Again, because if I thought he could clear, if I was 100% sure of that, I would be saying this is my top pick. But I think this horse is going to run well, and if he does get that clear lead, I think he's got a shot to pull the upset.
Yeah, I certainly think there's a case to be made. And finally, Gosker, mild upset winner of the Lexington. So unlike a lot of horses in here, this one's a graded stakes winner. The Lexington has often proven nice prep for the Preakness. It's a little close to the Derby, and usually horses that try to go from the Lexington as their final prep fail in the Derby because it's just too close. But this one pressed the pace, just made the lead at the top of the stretch and pulled off to win by 2 over not the most impressive field. It's not like Bracket Buster and Prador are going to scare anybody. But this is Brendan Walsh. Brendan Walsh teams with Luis Saez for 50% wins. They're 6 for 12. Obviously, this one wasn't Arad's first choice. Arad gets off to ride River Thames for Pletcher, and that's why this guy's 20-1. But certainly the form is there. He's never run a bad race. He's never been out of the exacta. And, cracking the super here, or even maybe the try, it wouldn't be the biggest shocker in the world.
I'm going to pass on this horse, Jay. I thought that the prep that he ran in was a lousy one. I did not think any of those horses were any good. I was amazed at how bad I thought that field was. And I thought it was a very unimpressive race. I thought he was okay on the gallop out. I did watch the race again. I thought he had a dream trip in that race. And again, a weak heat, okay gallop out. I just don't like much about this horse. He's going to be outside. He's going to lose some ground. I like the outside for Clever Again because I'm hoping that he crosses and clears. But I think Gosper is a horse that we can beat in here today. I'm going to try to beat him and throw him out.
All right. And on that note, it's that time, Steve. It's time for us to give our best 3 horses. And let's give them in ascending order from the third best to the best. And I'll certainly allow you to go first.
I'm not an English major, so I'm glad you said third best to the best there, Jay. We said ascending. I'm like, is that okay? No, I'm just kidding. I did go to college actually. River Thames is going to be my third horse. The 6 horse been very consistent. I'm going to go Clever Again. That's my price horse. I'm hoping the price drifts up a little bit. And I'm hoping that the media, social media people come out and bet Sandman again. So I'm sorry, River Thames is going to be my third horse, Jay.
Okay. My third horse is going to be goal oriented. I think this one is just scratching the surface of what he can do. I think today is probably not the day where he can get the job done against such experienced horses, but I think he is on the improve and he has the biggest ceiling of the bunch. I certainly think he's got one of the best riders in the country in Flavian. So really liking goal oriented chances to hit the board, and he's my third pick. And I think you hinted at your second pick already.
I did, Jay, and I like your third pick a lot. I just didn't like the draw for him. Again, if I'm going to play this race and key one horse over three, he would have been my fourth horse. I'm going to make Clever Again is going to be my second horse. I think this horse has got a clear early. Is that a gamble with American Promise in here? A little bit of one. This horse is very quick off the blocks. And I like the fact that he's a little bit more fresh than some of these. And this is a very, very good track for speed. I'm going to go with Clever Again to run second.
All right, my second horse is Journalism. And certainly Journalism is going to be the odds-on favorite. He's 8-5. I don't think he'll get 8-5. I think it's more like 4-5 against this field. He's got the class, he's got the speed numbers, but I just think that 2-week return from the Kentucky Derby is going to be a little taxing for him. He's had a fairly taxing campaign compared to some of these. I mean, the races are pretty well spaced, but I just think it might be a little bit too fast to come back for him. And, I don't think Reese Bully does fine with early pace types. I think he's better as a closer. I think Reese Bully is going to have to be closer to the pace today because of the configuration and the surface at Pimlico. So while I think Journalism is going to be up there, he's second best for me, Steve.
All right.
And time for our top picks.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I pick Journalism, which is who I'm going to pick, that means I'm probably not investing a lot of money in the race. And I do think that's who's going to win. That means to me, I'm already trying to look at where can I squeeze value out of this race, go into a trifecta if I want to do it at all. And honestly, I think Journalism is in a good spot here. I don't love the draw for him, but I think Rispoli will work it out. And I just think he's the best horse, even with a little bit of a negative run off of his last race. I think if he ran a little bit worse than that, I think he would still win here. I'm picking him on top. And again, it's more of a trifecta play for me in this race than it is a win bet on him. But I think Journalism gets a job done.
Steve, your second pick is my first pick. I love Clever Again on Saturday. This one has shown nothing but improvement. He's got the early pace numbers. He's bred to run all day long. Jose Ortiz has had a phenomenal meet. He just slayed it down at the fairgrounds where he was riding over 30%. And I think you're going to see Jose at fairgrounds on a consistent basis in the winter. He's teamed with Steve Asmussen for a lot of wins together. And I just think Clever Again is going to surprise a lot of people. And I think unlike Journalism, I think that price will hold up. I think you're going to get that 5-1 or maybe 4-1, but it's going to be bettable. Where Journalism, I just don't think is going to be bettable. I think Clever Again is the choice to make some money here, and I might try him both ways. I mean, try him on top of the trifecta, but also play Journalism on top, because Journalism obviously can win the race. So I might key a trifecta to Clever Again, and then play Journalism on top as my saver, and hope I tear up that ticket.
Any chance this horse drifts up in your mind, Jay? Is there any chance this horse could be 7 or 8-1?
It's possible. Yeah, I think because he hasn't run any graded stakes races, and there are a couple of horses in here, especially Journalism, that are better known. Yeah, it's not impossible that the price could be a little more generous. I would love to see it.
Well, he's a little short on numbers, and that's where sometimes you can get a price on a horse like this. I like to play speed horses that can clear in a race like this. And I think obviously you're thinking the same thing that I am. Maybe American Promise is not headed for his best effort. And if this horse could spurt clear, maybe at the half or even at the quarter way through the race, that he's going to have a good shot. I would agree with you if I thought I was going to get a better price than 5-1. At 7, 8, 9-1, I'm going to change my mind in this race and take a shot. But that's what it's all about for me. It's all about value. And right now I'm looking at 5-1. Playing against Sandman and thinking Journalism could be tough. But boy, if I look up and I see Journalism at 4-5 and I see Clever again at 8 or 9 to 1, I'm going to be going to the windows with you, buddy.
Oh yeah. And I just love the spacing between races. I mean, you've got, a 6 week plus gap here where he's had plenty of time to freshen up and get ready. And journalism has to crank it up again in 2 weeks. And I think you almost have to. I think yeah, if you're in the journalism camp shoes, if you're Michael McCarthy, you say, okay, Sovereignty just beat me at a mile and a quarter. If I wait for the Belmont like he's doing, it's a mile and a quarter again. Are my chances really going to be better? I think it's still a big deal to win a Triple Crown race, even if the Preakness isn't the most important of the three. It's still very historic and really enhances a horse's breeding value to have a Triple Crown race on the
Absolutely.
resume. So I think they're going to go for their best shot here. And if journalism wins, I think he might take on Sovereignty in that rematch. And if he doesn't win, I don't think there's any chance in hell that he's going to run the Belmont.
Yeah, that's probably true. Something crazy would have to happen, a bad trip or something like that. Yeah, I agree with that, Jay.
Yeah. So, Steve, that is our Preakness rundown and our Kentucky Derby review. And we've committed to doing this throughout the Triple Crown. And so we'll be back again to do this before the Belmont. And, we're still working with Jason Levine and racingjason.com. This interview and this podcast will be simulcast there on the two, for those that know us from that show, on the 2 free radio plays. They're still working on renovating that website, so it's right on the front. So eventually you won't have to jump through hoops to find us, but I'm going to put it on the 2 free Sunday radio plays every day of the week this week. So it's kind of easy to find. And of course you can see it at Horse Racing World Channel. And we'll have some other things to talk about. We're still talking to the radio people. I don't have any news there. It might be a little bit shorter. If we do radio this year, it might be a little bit of a more limited schedule. And there are some sponsors we're talking to for next year where we might have a chance to go back and do it on a more regular basis. But no news to report at this time. Maybe we'll have some news to report around the Belmont podcast that we do.
And again, folks, for those of you who are new to us, Jay and I both do picks on the Racing Jason website. Our picks for Santa Anita are available every racing day, every Southern California racing day. And Jay, I believe you're doing. Are you doing Churchill Downs right now, Jay, or are you doing an extra track right now?
No, I'm not doing any out of town. There may be, what I've been doing is I've been doing Santa Anita consistently on Saturday. I've been doing the best bets at Santa Anita on Sunday. And if we can figure out the logistics in time, there'll be a best bets for the Preakness. Otherwise, it'll be added on. I'll do something like the Preakness pick 4 as an addition to the full card. But I think it's going to work out where that's like a best bets option for Saturday. And I've been basically focusing on the local track, but doing the big special events. I'll be doing a full Belmont Stakes card, and the big races like that, I'll be doing additional work. How about
well, my Saturday racing, I will have Santa Anita on there, and then I'll have 4 or 5 selections on the Pimlico card. Whatever I like is what I will add to the Santa Anita full card. So that'll be what's in the mix for this Saturday.
Well, great. Well, hopefully, Steve, will continue these runs that you've been on, this impressive run, and maybe you can knock out all 3 Triple Crown winners. That would be something.
Well, we'll take one at a time here. We'll take one race at a time. This is definitely a different race, and then we're going to have to put our thinking caps on because the Belmont's not a mile and a half. It's a little bit different, and it's going to be at Saratoga versus being at Belmont. That renovation seems to be taking a little bit longer than what I thought it would be, but hopefully Belmont will get back going. I've been watching Aqueduct. It seems like a far too long of a period of time. And I have been following New York of late, but would sure like that Belmont to be done and get us back to that normal Triple Crown series.
Yeah, well, the goal is to have it ready for the fall meet, and then it should definitely be ready for the winter meet, and that's going to be run on Tapeta. They won't be using the dirt courses or the turf courses in the winter at Belmont, and that Belmont winter meet coming up will replace the Aqueduct winter meet, and then Aqueduct will go the way of Hollywood Park. But anyway, I mean, let's face it, Steve, that was the big dump of the 3 of them anyway. So I don't think many of us are going to miss Aqueduct.
No, and I tell you what, that's an opportunity, folks. When they have a new track like that on a circuit that's where there's as much money bet in New York, that new Tapeta surface will be new for all those horses. And if you can figure it out before everybody else, I like that when they do that, when they have a new meet like that. So that's something that I'm excited to hear. I didn't realize that that's what they were going to do. I knew there was Tapeta in there. I didn't realize that they were going to, I thought maybe it would be like Gulfstream where they run some dirt, some Tapeta, but is it going to be an all Tapeta meet? Is that what you said, Jay?
Yes, the winter meet at Belmont will be all Tapeta. The other two courses will close for 3 months for freshening because they don't want, they're sinking a small fortune into renovating Belmont, and they really don't want to expose those nice turf courses and that nice dirt course to those winter elements. So it's going to be kind of like when Aqueduct used to have that winterized surface that took all the running in the winter. That Tapeta course will kind of replace that winterized Aqueduct surface that
The
we
old inner dirt at Aqueduct.
exactly. And before we go, Steve, just a shout out to our pal Jason Levine. Jason's got the New York Knicks going. He's both a Clippers and a Knicks fan. We'll give him that because at least he's not rooting for the Lakers and the Knicks. That would be a little too much. But the Knicks are having a fine year, and good luck, Jason. I think this possibly could be the Knicks year.
Well, I tell you what, maybe so. I haven't really been following basketball all that much, but I'm a big baseball fan, and my Padres have had a really good start to this year. And I know we're looking up at your Dodgers just a little bit. I think a game and a half behind, but it should be fun watching those two play all year.
Yeah. Well, to all the listeners and viewers and new viewers, we really appreciate you taking the time to watch us and look at our picks on Racing Jason. And let's all have a big day on Saturday and take home some money from that track.
Yeah, good luck, everybody.
All right.